Our time is now 8 o'clock in the morning. It is Tuesday, the 20th of April, 2021. You're locked into Top of the Morning here on The Edge 105 FM. My name is Richie B, and we are welcoming you now to our feature, aired at this time every Tuesday morning, The Legal Landscape, presented in partnership with our friends at DunnCox Attorneys at Law. Today's topic, factors to consider when purchasing property in Jamaica. Now, many persons, whether self-employed or employed to a company, whether they have started a family or not, at some point in their lives, they envision the idea of owning property in Jamaica. However, many persons are unaware of exactly what is involved in the process of purchasing property. Here to help us out this morning, we're joined by attorney at law at DunnCox, Paulette R.E. She's our guest, looking at the topic, factors to consider when purchasing property in Jamaica. Good morning, Ms. Neal. Welcome. How are you today?
Good morning, Richie. I am fine, thank you. And you?
I'm doing well and happy to have you join us in this segment to share information that is very useful and that I'm sure will help a lot of persons out there. I want to start pretty much with the topic itself. What factors, Ms. Neal, should one consider when, initially contemplating purchasing property in Jamaica?
Okay, well, when initially contemplating purchasing property, the first factor that I would consider is a budget. What price range property are you looking to purchase? One should thereafter ask themselves questions such as, is this a cash purchase? Or will I need to secure a mortgage loan to finance this purchase? If you are securing a mortgage, then I would suggest that you get pre-qualification.
Mm-hmm.
You should also ask yourself, am I purchasing this property alone, or do I have a co-purchaser? Am I purchasing just land with the intention to build on it, or am I purchasing land with a building on it? So these are some of the factors that I would initially consider.
Okay. Now, once you've identified a property and you've decided to go ahead, whether it be by cash or getting a mortgage, what would you say are the next steps that one should take by way of purchasing that property?
Okay, so after you have identified the property and you have determined how you plan to finance the purchase, there are three main things that I believe a prudent purchaser should do. So the first thing I would suggest is conduct a physical inspection of the property. A physical inspection will reveal any structural defects in the property. If, for example, if you visit the property after a shower of rain, it is likely to reveal whether there is any leakage when rain falls. Never rely solely on what a realtor tells you on or pictures you have seen of the property on the internet. You should also inquire whether there are any tenants occupying the premises. And if it is just land that you're purchasing, inquire whether there are any squatter settlements. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to fall into a situation where you have entered into an agreement to purchase a property that you thought would have been vacant upon completion, only to later realize that, you have inherited tenants. Mm-hmm. And then you, as the new owner, you're left with the burden and expense to try to remove these tenants by, a notice or by court action. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I would suggest is, while a physical inspection is important, you must take further steps by securing the services of a commissioned land surveyor to provide you with a surveyor's ID report.
Okay.
Now, the surveyor's ID report will reveal whether the boundaries on the property align with that which is on the registered title. It will indicate whether there is any breach of any restrictive covenants on the title. It will also reveal whether there's any boundary issues, for example, or an encroachment on a neighboring property.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you should obtain your own valuation report. A recent valuation report will confirm the market value of the property, and it will indicate whether the property is being sold at its market value or above or below.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing I would suggest, Richie, is that you conduct a title search. If the property is a registered property, then the title search will not only help you to verify the ownership of the property and that the person who is purporting to sell actually has the authority to sell, thereby preventing fraud. It will also reveal whether there are any encumbrances on the title, such as any caveats, or if there is a mortgage and whether the mortgage has already been discharged.
Okay. So you've mentioned three very important elements in making a purchase. Now, you also highlighted the role of the realtor, the surveyor, the valuator. But how important would you say it is for a purchaser to get an attorney when purchasing property?
Richie, it is extremely important that a purchaser secures the services of not just any attorney, but an attorney who specializes in conveyancing. Typically, the agreement is prepared by the vendor's attorney, so it is the purchaser's attorney who will go through the terms and the conditions of the agreement with the purchaser, explain the purchaser's liabilities and obligations under the agreement. The attorney will ensure that the agreement accords with the purchaser's instructions. And even a title search, as I mentioned earlier, it is the purchaser's attorney who will typically conduct the title search and ensure that the purchaser's overall interests are protected.
Okay.
So it's very important.
Very, very important. If you're close to a radio, we're asking that you just move over a little bit or turn it down for us, Ms. Neal, as we're getting a little feedback, all right? And we want to remind our listeners that if you do have a question on this topic that we're talking with Ms. Neal, an attorney at law, about this morning, factors to consider when purchasing property, you can send us quickly a WhatsApp message to 876-383-1166. I'm interested to find out, what is the average timeline for completing the purchase of property?
The timeline varies. If it is a cash purchase, typically that can be completed within, say, 30 to 45 days from the date of the agreement. If the purchase is being financed by a mortgage, then it could take on average 120 days to be completed. However, if it is that you're buying into a new development, with a house or an apartment to be constructed, then the completion may take much longer, as it is dependent on the vendor receiving what is known as a certificate of practical completion.
Okay. Here's a question coming into us here. Could you ask the attorney to state what are some of the costs associated with purchasing property in Jamaica? Can you handle that?
Sure. So, in addition to the purchase price, some of the costs associated with purchasing the property include the cost of the surveyor's ID report and the valuation report that I mentioned earlier. And that cost varies. It depends on the size of the property. There's also the cost of the title search, but that's a nominal fee payable to the title's office. Mm-hmm. There's the stamp duty. That is now a flat fee of $5,000, and it is shared equally between the vendor and the purchaser. Okay. There's registration fee, which is 0.5% of the purchase price.
Did you say 0.5?
Yes.
0.5%. Okay.
Uh-huh. And that is also shared equally between the vendor and the purchaser. You have also your legal fee, and that is approximately 3% plus GCT of the purchase price. Okay. There's the cost of the agreement for sale, and I would say on average that's about $100,000 plus GCT, and it is shared equally between the vendor and the purchaser. There is also the cost of the letters of possession. That is also, a fairly nominal fee, and your mortgage processing fees, which is generally, say, approximately 5% of the value of the purchase price.
Yes.
And you have to bear in mind your insurance premium.
Okay. Those are the costs. So it's important persons understand, Ms. Neal, that especially if they're going to get a mortgage, that having the deposit is not enough. You do need to have what you call the closing costs, as you mentioned, eh?
Right. Some of those fees that I mentioned would come into the closing costs.
Yes. Any advice you'd like to share, pass on in terms of, a first-time property buyer?
Well, to first-time purchaser that is listening, I would say purchasing property is likely to be one of the biggest investments you make in your lifetime. The process can seem a bit daunting, But if you act prudently, if you exercise patience and follow the steps that we discussed earlier, thereby minimizing the risk associated with the purchase, then, the once daunting task will eventually become a fulfilling one.
Thank you so very much for that. Look at how time flies. It's already 10 minutes after 8 o'clock. But before I let you go this morning, Miss Neal, do you have a, shall we say, hashtag did you know tidbit?
Yes, I do, Richie.
What is it? Let's hear it.
So did you know that if your purchase is being financed by a mortgage and the valuation report reveals that the property is being sold at a price greater than the market value, then the financial institution which you have sought the mortgage from will not lend you any amount greater than the market value. The purchaser will then be required to come up with that shortfall.
To finance the difference, so to speak.
Right.
Got you. That's a beautiful one. Thank you so very much. We appreciate all the information you shared this morning. It was very, very useful to us and to many others, I'm sure. Thank you, Miss Neal. Have a good day.
You are welcome. Thank you and thank you.
Take care. Thank you. That was the legal landscape. We'll do it at 8 o'clock every Tuesday morning right here on Top of the Morning on the Edge 105 FM. And attorney at law, you heard her, Paulette R.E from DunnCox was our guest. The topic was factors to consider when purchasing property in Jamaica. She gave it all. Now it's for you to go find a property, make a purchase, and watch your value and your net worth grow. Know what I mean? All right. It's 11 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. This is Top of the Morning. You're on the Edge.